If you are looking to get a high-paying sales role at a top company but don't have any sales experience, by the end of this video, I will give you my step-by-step playbook on how to land your dream job even if you don't have any sales experience. I personally have made 6 figures in my first sales role working at Oracle straight out of university, and I've trained thousands of students across the globe on how to get a high-paying job at companies like Oracle, HubSpot, and other tech companies. And I'm going to compress all these learnings into this single video. All right, so we are going to dive right into it. So if you want a high-paying sales job, what are you supposed to do when you don't have any sales experience? No sales experience, no problem. The first thing you have to understand is that everybody is going to be starting from zero. That's right. Believe it or not, you start from zero. Whether you're graduating from university, whether you have another job and you want to transition into sales, do not worry about it, right? Because everybody, no matter how successful they are, has to start from zero. Now, the first product that you're actually selling is actually yourself. You're essentially selling your time, almost like a mini entrepreneur working at another company. And you need to show your value of why somebody should pay you for your time or pay you a percentage of commission based on what you sell. So selling yourself is literally the same process as selling any type of product and service. There's the strategy of like how you actually sell yourself, lead generation of getting the interviews in order to have the opportunity to sell yourself, right? An interview, it's literally just like a sales presentation for yourself. Finally, you do the sales meeting, which is doing the interview itself and closing the deal, which is closing that job. So now that you understand the mindset of things, the second thing you have to understand is what sales roles are even available for someone who is just starting out. How do you actually get paid in high income even when you don't have any sales experience? Most entry-level sales people actually start out as something called an SDR or BDR. This is short for Sales Development Rep and Business Development Rep. Different names, but pretty much the same thing, right? So an SDR's responsibility, and for this video, we're going to use the term SDR, right? Their responsibility is to generate meetings. Okay? You're going to use cold calling, cold emailing, LinkedIn, Twitter. It depends on what type of company you're going to be working at. Different companies have different platforms they prefer. A lot of the tech companies, they prefer, LinkedIn, cold calling, and cold emailing. If you're working in like crypto per se, then there's a lot of people on Twitter, or if you're selling info products, Twitter might be really good as well. It really just depends on the industry and what works. When you're setting up these meetings, you may also take qualification calls. Like if you're cold calling someone, right, you're actually talking to them to see if they are a good fit, meaning you're not selling anything as an SDR, you're just making sure whether or not they're fit to buy your product and services. And if the lead looks good, what's going to happen is you're going to pass it to another person, someone more seasoned, which is considered a account executive, which is another word for the closer. But again, when you're starting entry level, you're going to be the person just setting up meetings. You might be wondering at this point, do tech companies like Oracle, Salesforce, and Google, Facebook, you name it, do they really pay 60 to 80K a year in US dollars for someone to help them set up appointments and not even close deals? Yes, they do. I know it sounds unbelievable. I know it's crazy to think, how can you get paid tens of thousands of dollars per year just to set up meetings? Well, the SDRs do actually get paid a lot because the deals that you qualify, the leads that you qualify that is passed on to another person who closes it, that might be worth, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And so you don't want to discredit the value of setting up meetings as an SDR. Very, very valuable skill. So let's kind of talk about how this is going to work, right? When it comes to the sales role, your compensation, and what are the opportunities for advancement or what's next after your entry-level job. So sales development rep is an entry-level job where your job is to generate meetings, and it requires, like I said, zero experience. Some companies will ask for experience, but you can come in with no experience, to be honest, right? From there, what people typically want to do when it comes to trying to make money is they want to be an account executive, meaning you know how to generate leads. Now you want to be the person that closes deals, and usually account executives make a lot because they're the ones that have to go out and close new deals with customers that they're meeting for the first time. Now, you could go into different roles. You can go like straight into account manager, or you can go account executive into account manager. So you can zigzag and go in many different ways depending on what you personally want for yourself. Another role that people go into is the account manager role. It's similar to the account executive, but you're only working with customers that are already customers, right? So meaning if somebody bought a software and they're paying yearly, when their renewal is coming up, your job is to renew that customer to retain that revenue, right? So those are account managers. Sales engineers work with account executives, and without going too deep into it, sometimes when you're selling technology, it gets very technical. So a sales engineer is not necessarily a real engineer. They could have some tech skills, but their job is to explain the technicality of a product, whereas an account executive, their job is to build a relationship. When I was an account executive, I would bring in the sales engineer to be like, okay, we're going to bring in Samantha, who's going to talk more in detail on how the CRM is going to integrate with your software. I don't need to know that, but the sales engineer does. And so they'll cover those kind of topics, right? So depending on how much responsibility you want, whether you want to close new deals like a shark, you want to work with people that are already customers, which is easier, but you still make a lot of money, or a sales engineer where you're just coming in to sell something technical or just explain something. Depends on your personality. Now, real quick, if you want to break into sales and crush your sales interviews, get your dream job and just blow it out of the water, you want to make sure you book a clarity call with me and my team to see how I might be able to best help you. I helped thousands of people at this point succeeding in a sales job, getting jobs at companies like Oracle, HubSpot, and Salesforce. And so if you're someone who's interested in that, make sure to book your clarity call. Link is in the description, and check out saleslegacy.com to learn more about how we can help you. So now that you understand the different type of roles, where you can start and where you can end up, let's talk about picking where you should work, especially if you want to work with the top companies. So a couple things, right? The first thing you have to think about is the brand, company brand and reputation. So are the product and services at this company competitive? Is this something that you see people actually using? Are they already making money? Do they have product market fit? Do the employees like working at this company, right? You can look at Glassdoors or different review sites to see that, or you can ask your friends if you have friends working there. And just in general, like, what do people generally think about working at this company? Is it good? Is it bad? Is the culture good? Is it bad? You know, those kinds of things. The other thing you have to think about is going to be your base salary and commission, which equals to OTE. We're going to talk about this later in this video, but when you look at different job boards and stuff, they'll say on target earnings. On target earnings basically mean if you combine your salary plus your commission, what is the total you can potentially make per year? So a lot of people get into sales because they see a high OTE, which attracts them. They might be like, oh, like 75K a year OTE sounds pretty good. But you have to understand that base salary might be like 45K, and then commission, if you hit 100% of your quota, might be another 30K. Combine those together, that might be 75K, right? So that's how it works. The next thing is going to be growth potential. So when you work as a sales development rep, they're not all created equal. If you're starting at a smaller company, there may not be a lot of room for advancement. But if, let's say, this is a Series A company, they just raised a fresh $20 million and they're hiring 20 employees every year, then this is an opportunity for growth where you can advance very quickly. Now, if the company has been stagnant for the last 5 years, then it's kind of difficult to advance because it's not growing, right? So you always want to think about, are you joining a growing company, a stable company? What fits your personalities best? You know, is it VC backed? Is it profitable? These are all questions you have to think about when it comes to the long term of your career. And which brings us to the next point, which is startup versus corporate. Now, this is interesting because I have experience working at both. I worked at Oracle, which is very corporate, and I worked at startup, like a Y Combinator backed startup that raised tens of millions of funding. So let me tell you like the differences. When you're working at someone like Oracle, it's very structured, right? Like you have a territory, you have your team, you just work it. You're kind of like a gear in a machine. There's nothing wrong with being a gear. It's just very structured in how they do things. So if you're someone that wants structure, the playbook's already there. They usually have product market fit to get to that point. It's much easier to follow. That's why most people want to work at these large companies, because it's stable. Now, if you want the fun in hunting, eating what you kill, and you want to like find new clients and generate your own leads and close deals and like go above and beyond to learn those skill sets, a startup might be a better fit. And startups, there's different type of startups. There's startups that have, 5 employees. There's startups that have 20 to 100 employees. Even 1,000-person company may be still considered a startup, just depending on how you look at it. There's just different stages of startups, right? If you're trying to become an entrepreneur in the future, you want to get as close to the sun as possible. So meaning when there's less employee count, you can speak with the founder more and things like that. But if you prefer more stability and you don't want to figure everything out by yourself, then obviously a later stage startup or corporate might make more sense. Now that you understand what type of companies you want to potentially work for, let's talk about how you can actually get that interview to sell yourself and get that high paying job. The first one we got to cover is going to be job boards, right? So there are a couple of places. The first is if there's already a company that you want to work at, usually they have a career section where you can look at different jobs that they have. So let me go ahead and give you some examples of this. So for this particular example, let's go ahead and say we want to work at the company Webflow. And Webflow, if you didn't know, is one of the most popular website builders. So similar to something like a Squarespace or Wix or Framer. And actually our Sales Legacy website is made from Webflow, actually, if you want to check that out. So for Framer, you might be like, okay, like seems like a pretty good company. Let's go on their LinkedIn. I'll show you how to vet a different company. So let's say you go on their website, you want to first look at the homepage, scroll down a little bit, and you see how fast are they growing. So it seems like company has been around, the medium tenure. So people typically stay for 2 years, and they grew by 10% in the last 6 months. And right now they're hiring for 15 different jobs, which is good because a company that is hiring for new jobs typically growing. And then if you want to check if the people at this company are real, right? So it seems like they have over 1,000 employees, right? You know, Webflow is not necessarily like a small startup or anything, right? They're getting large, but they're not a big company. Yeah, 1,000 people, still it's substantial, right? So you kind of see like these are real people. They're working in the US and all over around the world. And you can see like you can vet like this is the legit check, right? So now what you want to do is you want to go on their job boards. Usually usually when you scroll all the way down, right, you can control F and you find careers. It says like we're hiring, you click here, then you're going to get to this page where they kind of sell you on like, oh, this is why you should work at Webflow. And then you go and explore open roles, and then you see all the different roles, right? So for us in particular, we want the sales role. So I control F, scroll down, look for sales jobs specifically. It seems like they have a business development role and a growth account executive role. So lead generation here and closer here. So a company like Webflow, all they're really doing is helping people build websites. But because, a lot of companies need a lot of websites, these things can get very expensive, meaning they can make a lot of money. Business development rep, you kind of look in and you say, okay, well, first of all, it says here it's a remote job. So a lot of people want to work remotely. So you want to first see if you have to come into the office, or if it's hybrid, or if it's completely 100% remote. Remote's pretty legit. Now, full-time, all that stuff. And then they'll tell you your compensation, right? So they're basically saying in US dollars, 77K. Like I said before, you want to pay attention to the starting salary, how much you could potentially make if you hit 100% of your quota. It shows the different responsibilities, which is basically just the leads, so inbound leads. So it says here, as a business development representative, you're going to do the inbound leads. So that's really easy. People sign up and then they have to upgrade, right? So that's a very, very easy sell. So I'll give you a tip. Closing inbound deals is way easier than doing outbound. Inbound is like they come to you, they use the product, and then they got to a point where there's a paywall, they have to upgrade, right? So that's very easy to sell. You have to just email them essentially, and they're already a customer. So it seems like for this particular job, there's not a lot of outbound, but what they want is someone that thrives in an outbound environment. So that's a little bit unclear, but it's always good to have that outbound skill where you're reaching out to people that don't know who you are or maybe familiar, and you want to generate a meeting. So I guess like for these ones, it's just like culture fit. And then when you go down to the benefits, they're just very competitive. So it's pretty similar benefits to like most startups, right? This is an important part right here. You desire mentorship, open mind to coaching. So they understand that you're not going to know everything about sales, especially for an entry-level role. So it's okay if you don't have all the sales experience. Even if you don't meet 100% of this criteria above, you should still seriously consider applying. Research shows that you may be considered for a role if you just meet half the requirements. So they're like, look guys, if you don't have sales experience, it's cool. As long as you're coachable and you have an open mind for learning, that's fine. And I'm telling you guys, sales is a skill that anybody can learn. So as long as you have that willingness to learn, these companies, even they're the top companies, are paying 75K a year, they will still hire you, okay? Now I'm going to give you a couple other places you can look, and there's many different job boards, and you want to use the one that's the best for your specific country, whether like your US, Canada, UK, or maybe in Asia, or you also want to think about what industries typically post on these job boards. I'm not saying these are the end all be all, but I'm just saying these are some examples, right? So these are more like tech related ones, right? So tech jobs, like Well-Found is definitely one of them. So if you kind of just type in like sales development rep, you can find a lot of jobs here. Another one would be Built In, which I found recently. You can search like sales development rep, search for remote hybrid roles, and you're going to see like all these different jobs available, right? And when you go into it, similar to the other example we went into, they're going to have like the role and everything. Sometimes they'll have the on-target earnings, how much you can expect to make, and you apply, okay? So job boards is definitely one of the powerful ways to do it. You can send your resume to a lot of people, but you want to make sure you're not spamming everybody, because that's not cool. You got to stand out from the crowd, write like a customized cover letter at least, like make it feel like you actually want to work there, because that's very important. Now, another way to actually get the interview is referral. So when I got a job at Oracle, I actually got the interview because my friend already worked there, and I said, hey, I saw you worked at Oracle, I want to learn more about it. The tip for referrals is you don't want to say right away, like, can you introduce me? You want to say, okay, I saw you work there. I'm really just curious about like your experience there. Do you mind if we have a conversation over a call or a coffee or whatever the case is, depending on the relationship of your friend? And then they'll be like, sure, happy to help, because they kind of know like you want to work there, but instead of being so direct, you're just saying like, I want to know your experience to see if I want to work there, essentially. So referrals is definitely powerful. Companies like referrals because, if you're a certain type of person, you attract a certain type of people into your life, and if they hired you, they'll probably hire your friend, right? That's how it goes. Now, another route you can do is like a recruiting agency. So I've used recruiting agencies before and had really good experiences with that. So recruiting agencies, the way it works for tech sales in particular, usually you go in, you tell them like, hey, this is what I want, and they'll match you with a company. Now, you don't have to pay anything. The company that hires you is actually the one that pays. So if your starting salary is 75K with on-target earnings plus salary, if they place you into a job, the company might pay like 5 to 10K to hire you, right? Now, why would they do that? Well, it's because good salespeople are hard to find. So these companies are willing to pay these recruiters money to find these people. So you have to make sure that you're the type of person who is actually good and worthy of working a recruiting agency. Because if you don't show that you're willing to learn and hardworking, they're not going to work with you because you're not paying them. They're only getting paid when they place you. Like one company that I used before is going to be Bets Recruiting. So you can find many different recruiting agencies. You don't have to use Bets. I just used them in the past, like many years ago, and I had a good experience. But they will actually do the work for you, depending on what the type of company you want. not your geographic location, there may be a different agency that's better for you. You can also do cold outreach as well. So DMing people on Twitter if you have a following, or even if you don't have a following, to be honest, Instagram, DMs, cold email. I got an internship before in sales, just sending a cold email to a founder at a company I want to work for. And I actually got the internship that way. So there's nothing wrong with cold emailing. That actually does work. And you are selling yourself, like I said. So make sure you want to explore that option if you don't have many connections yet. So the next thing I want to talk about is how you will be crushing your interview, because now we talked about the type of companies you want to work for, how you're going to actually get the meetings and the different channels you can use, but how do you actually crush your interview so you actually get that sales role you've been looking for? A couple things, right? How does it actually work? The first is understanding the structure of how these companies interview, especially at these larger tech companies. The first interview is going to be a phone screen, right? So it's usually like a 15-30 minute interview to see if you check all the boxes. Are you someone worthy to move on to the next phase? A lot of times either a hiring manager might do it, a recruiter might do it. So it depends on the company, right? For a larger company, it's usually a recruiter who is checking all the boxes. The next step is actually going to be the second interview. So the second one, you either do it over the phone or it's going to be on site, depending. And it's usually like a 30-minute to 1 hour interview where they ask more questions in depth and you're actually talking to the people you will potentially work with, not just a recruiter, right? Recruiter just screens you and finds you, but the second interview is typically where they really get to know you as a person. For me personally, one of my interviews when I interviewed at Oracle, it was a really quick interview where I did a screen and then I did a 30-minute interview with a sales director where I did pretty well on that. I got the job. But at other companies like a startup where they're hiring slower, I remember I went to the office and I was there for legit 3 hours doing 3 different interviews, doing mock calls, mock presentations. And then after they asked me to write examples of cold emails and examples of inbound emails of how I would approach customers. So depending on the type of company, they may ask you to do a lot of work. They may ask you to do literally a sales presentation in that interview. So you want to definitely ask what are the requirements for that second interview and how you should prepare for that. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to get everything perfect, but you have to show that you can actually sell yourself to them and prove that you're someone that's coachable, you're hardworking, and you're someone that can figure things out even though you don't have all the answers today. Those are going to be the characteristics of someone who is going to succeed in the sales role. Like I said before, to do well in a sales interview is learning how to sell yourself, okay? Showing that you are someone that has the competency and the coachability to become better. Everybody starts from somewhere, and chances are if you're watching this video, you're starting from the beginning. So understand, use it to your advantage. There's nothing wrong with starting from the beginning as long as you have the capacity to learn. And a lot of times for salespeople, they learn all the bad habits from the wrong people and they're hard to retrain. So if you're starting fresh, great. You're a blank slate and you're able to fit into a company's culture and just learn everything, as quickly as possible to succeed. And like I was saying, specifically show them your potential, your willingness to learn, and how you will bring in ROI for this company, right? Because if you're trying to get paid, that 60 to 80K for an SDR role, you have to understand that you have to convince this hiring manager, whoever it is, that you're going to bring more than 60 to 80K in value to them, meaning you're going to have to generate all these meetings that's going to hopefully generate them hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. So again, as a salesperson, you're kind of like a mini entrepreneur. You're bringing value into a company, and that's why you get paid so much. Yeah, just keep in mind, especially for the SDR roles, you may have to do, outbound, inbound writing tests. You might have to do cold call tests, doing that first meeting. So you want to really well prepare on how exactly you're going to do that. And you can watch my other videos on step-by-step process in that. Now, lastly, you also have to be able to handle these objections, right? So understand what are the most common objections. From the price is too high, I'll think about it, now it's not the right time. You need an answer to these objections because they are going to ask you on that sales interview, especially if it's a high demand job where, it's very competitive. So that's how you're going to break into tech sales and get a high paying sales job. And if you're someone who's serious about taking your sales game to the next level and you want to find these high paying sales jobs, or if you're already in these jobs and you want to take it to the next level, hit your quotas, you want to make sure to book a clarity call with me and my team to see how I might be able to help you find that high paying job or help you excel in your job. For me personally, I made 6 figures out of college working at Oracle, and I worked at different startups, and I created my own business helping other people. And now what I do is I coach people in sales, especially when it comes to tech sales, and helping them get high paying jobs, crushing it when it comes to lead generation and sales through my masterclass Sales Legacy, which is going to be not only a course, but also weekly coaching calls with me as well. So if you're interested in that, definitely book a clarity call, and the link is in the description. And I'll see you in the next one.